Yes, I was just about to pose the question as to whether or not you listened to the interview granted by your colleague as well, Femi Falana, who talked about how, bail was not granted before in corruption cases, and it would seem that the jinx was broken with the Ibori case, and, subsequently it would seem that they've had issues with, bail being granted. They have not jumped bail. I mean, we've hardly seen cases where there's prominent people jump bail, but we've seen the cases extend. There seems to be no hurry to prosecute the matter because of the fact that these people are out of detention or out of the custody of the EFCC. And so sometimes the matter tends to prolong longer than usual. What is your response to that comment by your colleague?
First of all, like I restricted earlier, to prosecute Chief Ibori, the UK government spent millions of euros.
Pounds?
Sending witnesses, sending investigators, combing virtually all over the world to get evidence against him. By the time the charge was presented, he had no choice because the evidence was overwhelming. And if you want to do the same in Nigeria, I tell you, how many lawyers does EFCC have? Prominent ones that are prosecuting their cases. Mr. Rotimi Jacobs, SAN, Mr. Festus Keyamo. There's virtually any senior advocate you go and approach to do EFCC case, they won't accept it.
Would you
I have called them to say I'm ready.
You're ready to help?
I did call EFCC on my own to say, well, let's do this anti-corruption work together.
What was the response?
So that's private. Now, talking about bail, honestly, I cannot support and sit down here that we should no longer liberalize the conditions of bail. Because when you do it, it will affect virtually every sector of the Nigerian society. A husband who is angry with his wife and locked him off, that time will no longer be anti-corruption. When a person like that gets to court and you say don't grant him bail, you find out the reasons why. He can't walk.
No, but considering how serious, I mean, if we say that corruption is pervasive and considering the seriousness of, maybe if we're able to quantify the lives that have been lost, infrastructure that ought to have been provided that wasn't provided, do you think that it's not serious enough for us to say this is the gravity of the crime that it is that we're accusing you of?
No. The gravity of a crime is defined by the charge and the nature of the offense. In Nigeria today, bail comes in 3 categories. For misdemeanors, simple offenses, it's automatic. You just go to court, the court will allow you the opportunity as long as you can give evidence that you will show up in trial. And then there are felonies, 3 years, 7 years, such as these anti-corruption cases. And then there are serious capital offenses of insurgency, of murder, armed robbery, or trying to take over government. And the position we are in this country today is that there is no offense that is not bailable. Every offense
including
in Nigeria,
terrorism?
Yes, ma'am.
But you're also aware of the debate that has been going on.
It is the discretion of the judge.
It's a world debate, I would say, between, granting or upholding human rights in cases of terrorism as against the crime that has been committed. You're aware of that debate that's been going on, and sometimes the dilemma that judges face is in terms of upholding the rights of the suspects as against the crime that they're accused of committing.
When you say something is human rights, it's intrinsic to the fellow as a human being. The right to life, the right to freedom of movement. It's inherent in that person by virtue of his creation. It's not negotiable. That's why you say it's human rights. It's not something you can tear his skin and remove it. There are rights to dignity, rights to privacy, rights to express your opinion, rights to liberty. I'm just explaining to you the reasons why we can't subject human rights to terrorism or to corruption or to any other.
What I mean is that in cases where grievous crimes have been committed, I mean, you say in this country as it is, almost every offense or every offense, according to you, is bailable.
Yeah.
But in some crimes, that is not the case. And it would seem that the debate is also ongoing here in Nigeria as to whether every crime should be bailable. As to, when you weigh the grievousness of the crime the suspect is being accused of, and, what it is that the judges are thinking. Even amongst lawyers, they're beginning to question whether that should be the case, especially in cases of terrorism. Do you think that every offense should be bailable? For instance, they also say that when you have committed a crime, some of your rights should be denied you. I mean, you cannot have all the human rights. For instance, your right to freedom, for instance.
Well, Maupe, if you ask me that we're debating, let the debate go on. But until you change this constitution, that debate must be subject to this constitution. If I close my eyes now and you ask me, under what circumstances will a marriage be dissolved? I will tell you these circumstances. When they are no longer together, when there's violence. If you ask me when will a land be proved, I will close my eyes and tell you 5 reasons. Possession, legal title. If you ask me when will injunction be granted, I will say, what's your legal right? And it's the same thing with bail.
Did this constitution envisage terrorism?
This constitution?
Yes.
No, the constitution has nothing on terrorism. Terrorism is a criminal act.
Exactly.
I'm talking about the rights of the citizen. To say that if there is a debate, we then balance it like you have said. To say, how do we get laws? For instance, there is a law in the new Administration of Criminal Justice Act that says police could go to a magistrate court and obtain remand warrant for a particular time if the investigation cannot be accommodated or concluded within the time and detain the suspect for a particular time.
If you allow me to come in here so that we can move on, it will seem as if on corruption issues, there's no one that hasn't been granted bail, if you look at it critically speaking. So where is the fault here if someone is granted bail and maybe the next minute he or she is picked up again if there's another case against that individual? Isn't that okay?
No. I have no problem with anybody being arrested, rearrested, charged, or recharged. But
because our argument has to do with bail now, so I had to bring that in.
Yeah, the reason why I'm saying so is this. If a person has committed corruption offenses or whatsoever, he cannot swallow money into his stomach. He must have probably transferred money to his bank account or loaned that money somewhere or the other. So you already have the evidence. Before you started inviting him for answer or to give answer to questions, you already have the evidence, the bank statements, his bank account, everything. So if the trial is not to witch hunt him, if the trial is not to punish him, which will not be the case, you present the evidence before him and lay the charges bare before the court. But if you withhold some of the evidence and say, okay, you try to swallow your statement in custody, I will keep that in the meantime. Let me charge you for the 400 million naira that you receive. As immediately he's granted bail, you wait 5 days and say, this is another charge. You try to swallow your evidence. He's granted bail there. You come back. Oh, PDP members say you are not supposed to be a member of the board of trustees, so we charge you for forgery again. It will show clearly to any judge, to any other person, that your purpose is just to keep him permanently in custody. No, you are not interested in the trial. So again, bring out all the evidence.
No, on such matters, you have to look at timing. If one happened after you were already in court and subsequently more keep happening, then you don't have to blame the prosecution there. Because, for instance, A took you to court and leading up to that particular prosecution, B occurred and C occurred. So what do you do?
No, I have no problem, Sulai, with the multitude of charges that you can prefer against a person, especially if they reoccur. And bail cannot be a blanket right to freedom forever. It's limited to a particular offense for which you are charged. So if there's another offense, you go and face it and then take your bail.
Let's also look at this matter.
You
must have seen what transpired during the week when the former PDP scribe was brought to court in handcuffs. There's been a debate back and forth on that one. As a lawyer, what would you be saying on that?
Well, for me, personally, handcuffing a suspect will arise under certain circumstances. If his conduct proves violent, if he constitutes a risk to security operatives, as in he's likely to beat them up or injure them, if he's likely to run away from his trial. But in the circumstance of the PDP spokesperson, he was arrested at home. And there's no evidence that he resisted arrest. And up to the time that he appeared in court in the first instance, he didn't resist arrest. In the second instance, he didn't resist arrest. And the nature of the charge he's facing is purely money laundering or corruption charge, punishable with 3 years, 7 years. So there is no circumstance that will warrant him to say, I will run away. So such persons, they're entitled to be taken to God unmanacled, unhindered, unfettered. So when I saw him in court with handcuffs on his hand, I then feel that it's just to send a statement, and especially to the opposition, that we are ready. And it's just purely a humiliation strategy. Because Olisa Metuh...
So if you see other members, sorry to interrupt you, if you see other members of the APC and they're also in handcuffs, what message would that be sending to anyone?
If I see members of the APC in handcuffs, I will come against it in corruption charges. I would not support that at all. It's unnecessary. It's uncalled for. The handcuffing is purely a circumstance whereby the suspect is likely to injure the prosecution.